Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, you're on this end.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bailey Garfield. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today I will be presenting on how we can use deep learning techniques to train convolutional neural networks to perform semantic segmentation of multispectral images. So let's begin with a quick overview of the world of big data propelling this field of machine learning research. In 1944, American librarian Fremont Riter calculated that the storage capacity of libraries would need to double every 16 years to accommodate a new amount of research and information being published. But Riter's calculation couldn't account for the groundbreaking development in digital technologies which would come about in the next few decades. These technologies revolutionized the fields of digital imaging, data storage, and led to many new kinds of media for transmitting information. Inventions such as the transistor in 1947, the op-amp in 1957, and fiber optic communications in the 1970s revolutionized the field of electrical engineering and contributed to the rise of the information age. The information age refers to the shift from physical industry-centered economies to a new economy based around information technology. The onset of the information age has been marked by an exponentially increasing flow of data. With each passing year, data can be stored in larger quantities, processed in less time, and transmitted with greater speed. This increase in processing power in data storage can be approximated by Moore's law and Kreider's law. Moore's law states that the number of transistors that can be utilized in an integrated circuit will double every 2 years, so computer chips can perform more operations at faster speeds. Kreider's law states that the amount of storage space available for hardware use will double every 13 months, so computers can store more information and access it more quickly. With this increase in storage and processing, the proliferation of computerized technology, such as smartphones, wearables, and other home devices connected to the Internet of Things, has resulted in a massive amount of new data to process, store, and analyze. We call this increasingly huge amount of information big data. And we can summarize the core concept of big data with the 3 V's: receiving data in greater variety, in bigger volumes, and with increasing velocity. Excuse me. This massive flow of data has presented a ton of new challenges in mathematics and engineering, because the value of this data totally depends on our abilities to find patterns and trends within it. The problem is that data sets are getting so much larger and so much more complex that traditional data software can't keep up with the analysis. This challenge has sparked an evolution of machine learning techniques. Machine learning is a method of data analysis that automates data processing using neural networks. A neural network is a series of algorithms which attempt to recognize underlying relationships in data sets. And we call them neural networks because they're designed to mimic the pattern recognition of the human brain. Neurons in the brain use electric signals to convey information from sense input, such as from the optical nerve in the eye, to the brain. Then it processes the information and outputs a reaction, such as squinting in bright light. Artificial neural networks mimic this kind of semantic communication. Traditional machine learning neural networks will automatically design their own analytical methods after being trained by organized and labeled data, which must be input by a human. But the newest kind of machine learning networks are capable of deep learning, which means that they can develop models from unstructured and unlabeled data. In 2015, universities at the University of Freiburg in Germany developed a deep network based on an innovative training strategy they named UNET. UNET is a convolutional network, which is a type of deep learning network with applications in brain-computer interfaces, image and video recognition, and medical image analysis. Convolutional networks are particularly useful for image processing because they mimic the patterns of connectivity between the neurons in the animal visual cortex, which is the part of the animal brain that processes information from the eyes. The UNET relies on data augmentation to use the input of annotated samples more efficiently, so the network can be trained faster and with fewer input data sets than previous networks. So this is a very simple example of an image that has been analyzed using semantic segmentation. For many convolutional networks, the desired output will include localization. That means that each pixel in the image will be assigned a class label. In this case, we have person, bicycle, or background. More complex images will have more layers. In order to train a convolutional network to segment images this way, they learn from images with ground truth data called annotated training samples. These annotating training samples are generally created and input by humans. UNET is a deep learning network designed specifically for biomedical image segmentation. Unlike previous networks, UNET can be trained with very few annotated images, and the network can actually begin to segment images on its own with training inputs of just 30 images. UNET can also identify multiple instances of the same type of object touching each other and distinguish between them. Additionally, UNET learns segmentation in an end-to-end setting. That means it takes a raw image in and sends a clear segmentation map out. Here's an overview of how UNET is constructed. Like all convolutional networks, there are many steps in the process of image segmentation. In order to train a deep network to segment image, the UNET builds off of the concept of the sliding window training setup. Envision a small magnifying glass on one part of an image. This magnifying glass can identify and isolate individual pixels in their little neighborhood or patch of adjacent pixels, and then provides the network the local patch for it to predict which label to apply to the pixel. However, the sliding window setup has a fundamental problem: the trade-off between localization accuracy and the use of context. Larger patches require wider pooling of layers, so localization details are lost and the pixels are sorted into fewer layers. But smaller patches don't let the network see enough context from the neighborhoods of pixels to adequately classify the layers, because they may contain pieces from different parts of the bigger image. So the U-shaped architecture you see drawn on screen is the elegant solution to this problem. The architecture consists of the contracting path shrinking down and toward the center, and the symmetric expanding path moving up and to the right. The contracting path is a more traditional convolutional network. It performs repeated 3x3 pixel convolutions, as well as 2x2 pixel max pooling operations, and then a stride for downsampling. On the expanding path, there is an upsampling of the feature map and 2x2 up convolutions with the larger image from the contracting path to bring you layers to the bigger image. The final layer applies a 1x1 pixel convolution to map all 64 of the component features to the desired number of classes. There are 23 layers total in the network, and at the end, the UNET provides also the 2-layer segmentation maps, which separates the foreground from the background. So now that we've given a big background to deep learning, semantic segmentation, and the specific network we're using for this research project, I'm going to quickly go through the specifics of my project and how I use MATLAB to train the UNET to perform the semantic segmentation of multispectral images. For my project, I focused on how deep learning semantic segmentation can be used to measure the amount of vegetation cover from high-resolution aerial photographs. This data analysis can be used to track deforestation, or decrease in forest cover, which is a critical measure of ecological health in a region. The UNET lends itself well to this kind of image analysis because it does a really good job of differentiating between different types of vegetation, like grass or trees or shrubbery. So due to time constraints, I'm not going to actually run the program today because running a convolutional network takes a significant amount of processing power and it takes a while to complete. So instead, I'm going to give a quick overview of the process of training the UNET in steps and show you some screenshots of the MATLAB code. So this is the first step here, which is the process of loading and inspecting the data we're going to use to train the UNET. So this includes the images as well as the ground truth data. This data specifically was annotated and organized by researchers at Rochester Institute of Technology. In the blue highlighted text is the main script of the program, and the yellow text shows the code from the function files called. The second step is to display the image channels to make sure all the image data is present. We call these images multispectral because they're classified into layers based on spectrums of light. We have 3 layers at the top: the red, green, and blue channels, and we also have an infrared channel. At the very bottom is the segmentation mask. So this tells the UNET which parts of the image it needs to analyze. So the third step is to catalog the truth data in these images. These are our training labels on the left and also in green. These are the ones that teach the UNET what types of objects we're wishing to identify in the images. And then we have 19 different types of objects that we're trying to identify in this image. The fourth step is to create the random patch extraction data store. Essentially, this code gives the instructions to the UNET about the size of the patches to use for its modified sliding window analysis. This step is necessary because MATLAB would run out of memory for images of this size if it attempted to analyze the entire image at once. We can see at the bottom that the image is separated into square patches with dimensions 256 by 256 pixels. And this third dimension refers to the number of layers. So you have a 256 and 200 by 256 patch on the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, the infrared channel, and then the masks. The fifth step
So 2 minutes.
is 2 minutes. That's okay. The fifth step is to create the UNET layers and train the network. By this point, our network now has stored the image channels, categorized the ground truth data, and separated the image that it wishes to segment into workable patches. What this code fragment does is teaches the UNET how to segment these images and how to use the mask channel to limit the analysis to the relevant portion of the image. And the function medfilt2 removes noise in stray pixels with post-image processing. The sixth step is to predict the results on the test data. So essentially, this is the part of the code that actually has the UNET perform its own semantic segmentation of the images. This is the slowest part of the code to operate because MATLAB is running through each patch, we're performing repeated convolutions and downsampling, and then generating the finished result. And then our final step is to quantify how accurate UNET segmentation of our images. And we do this by comparing the results of the segmentation to the ground truth data. We see here that the overall accuracy of the segmentation is about 90.7%, which is pretty high and can be improved with increased training. And then, of course, the last piece is to add together the number of pixels classified as either trees, grass, or other vegetation, and then divide them by the total number of pixels to get the percentage of vegetation cover in the image. I'd like to thank the following people for their contributions to my research project. I'd like to, of course, thank Lockheed Martin for funding this fellowship. I'd also like to thank the National Science Foundation for my participation in the STEM program, which has helped me a lot in developing and perfecting the presentation, as well as my research advisor, Dr. Nayan Zhang, as well as the STEM Center, Dr. Freddie Dixon and Ms. Anita Wood. Here are some of my references. Do you have any questions?
Questions online?
Great presentation, Bailey. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for showing the raw code. I'm just curious for those testing data. Could you show me where that line of code, where those testing data coming from?
Where the training data comes from? So it comes from the top. It's actually hosted at this URL that's provided by the Rochester Institute of Technology. They did a great job of annotating this training data that was a little bit beyond the scope of my research. And it was really useful. It's called the Hamlin Beach data set because they're aerial images from Hamlin Beach State Park in New York State.
Is those are that's where testing data coming from too? Testing.
Yes. So this is just the image, and then the URL provides like the image data here, but then we also get the full file, which includes the data from RIT as well as the like formatted files. So all this data, the images, the layers, and the ground truth data come from RIT.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Of course.
Great presentation.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay. So next up we have Jermaine.